Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
Hello again, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for this Monday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting today's show. Up first, looking at satellite imagery, we've got the next system here pulling eastward out of the Russian Far East, that spreading clouds here across the northwest Bering, with some moisture beginning to work in towards St. Lawrence Island and a little bit to the southeast here. Otherwise, looks like a break there across the permafrost today that extended into Bristol Bay and then back out toward the west and southwest. And we've got some bands of clouds coming up across the Alaska Peninsula here. Roll that again, associated with a system that's passing by to the south of the Aleutians. And then we've got an upper level trough axis, actually an upper level low coming eastward here, bringing the moisture into south central Alaska, trough extending northwestward. That's what's responsible for that big cloud shield here from the Gulf of Alaska right on up to the Arctic coast there. And here on the west side, northerly winds up there, temperatures upper 30s. Not too bad, not really any snow at the surface locations being reported, but areas of rain all through here, especially in the central area of that cloud mass with showers either side. See the flow here southeast coming up and then taking a turn to the north, back out to the west. Flow is from the north and northwest there. And you can see clearing out across Kodiak Island as that drier northwest flow kicks in. Still some clouds around, but clearing out on the east side of the island where there's more downsloping. Same thing here along the Alaska Peninsula. You got clouds on the Bering Sea side, low clouds, and then some areas of clearing here on the south side. And way up there in the northeast interior, also have some clearing from what looks like about Barter Island, Kaktovik, down to Arctic Village there in Old Crow, and just the Northway area on into Canada, seeing some partly sunny skies. A lot less shower activity today over the southeast coast. Most of that moisture either slid off to the southeast with this system, just with some scattered showers there near the border this afternoon, and then moisture increases here due to this trough coming eastward, and then the southeast flow coming in. Got mostly showers from the Gulf of Alaska into the North Gulf Coast, and an area of light rain here along the trough extending northward. Otherwise, scattered showers to the east, and then some showers back to the west here that cut off by the time you get out to the coastline. And gusty northwest winds, 20 to 30, 35 miles an hour here across the Alaska Peninsula, diminishing as you go up the coastline there, becoming light and variable over the northern Bering Sea as this system approaches from the west. And that will again start to kick the winds up here, the gradient from the high to the south, the low here to the west, and we're getting some pretty good west-southwesterly winds. And those will advance eastward as the low center pulls eastward. Tonight they'll spread rain, periods of, across St. Lawrence Island, low clouds, fog, possible IFR, and that'll be advancing in toward western Norton Sound and the Yukon Delta coast, mostly north of Nunivak Island. Late tonight, chance of rain reaching Macoriac. Otherwise, ridge out in advance of that, so dry conditions here across the Kuskokwim Delta up into the west central interior. Looks like showers persisting, though, along the western Alaska range, and then becoming a lot more isolated down toward the Alaska Peninsula. Same pattern here, low stuff, clouds, maybe some drizzle, Bering Sea side, clearing on the south side. A little windier now for Kodiak Island overnight tonight, but light winds, fair skies, dry conditions here across the southern Bering. Most of the Aleutians, rain just to the south of the area there, should hold to the south until maybe tomorrow or then tomorrow night. Otherwise here, southeast coast, we've got moisture coming westward. That's going to begin to increase the showers here, especially over the central eastern border areas down towards Stewart, spreading westward to Prince of Wales Island, and just scattered showers up to the north mostly off the coast there, so Yakutat may escape without any precipitation, as well as Cordova. It stays dry from the Copper River Basin up the east side there. This trough weakening, area moisture dissipating now, and rain, the areas of rain changing to showers. This will become more scattered as the night wears on, and that moisture will be lifting northwards. It looks like from about the Koyukuk Valley across the western central Brooks Range on out to the central Arctic coast. Rain, higher elevations of Brooks Range, there'll be snow, mixed rain and snow on up to the Arctic coast, drying in the west. And for the outlook for tomorrow, Tuesday, we've got rain lifting northward now. This warm front getting onto the edge of the map, as well as the low center, 986 millibars. Pretty good gradient here. Increase in the winds, east-northeasterlies on the increase. Chances of rain also increase, mostly for on Alaska. Better chance for Nikolsky, possibly getting as far west as Atka. AKwx still in the fair skies there, but you'll see an increase in the winds as well. High pressure, light winds farther out to the west. And then this low center takes a turn to the northeast and centers itself right over the Seward Peninsula area. Pressure about 1,007 millibars. Pretty good winds whipping around this system, mostly aloft, but they'll pick the surface winds up as well, ridging up into the interior. Still some scattered showers holding on to mostly the White Mountains and possibly along the Alaska Range. South of the Alaska Range, offshore flow here, light northwest winds, mostly sunny, Susitna Valley. Dry, sunshine, possibly here all the way down to Kodiak Island, Prince William Sound, North Gulf Coast, maybe some shower chances for the Wrangell Mountains. And again, best chance of showers here with that moisture that's pulled back to the west out of Canada, kind of hangs out over the southern panhandle tomorrow, so it looks kind of wet and showery there. And mostly cloudy with scattered showers on up to the north. But again, North Gulf Coast dry, Bristol Bay as well, maybe a few more clouds with this advancing system. Westerly flow could kick up, increase the clouds there. Otherwise, for Wednesday, that system dissipates, moves off, just this moisture left over with it, with mostly cloudy, scattered showers, especially central eastern interior. Rain or snow up along the eastern north slope, Brooks Range area to the eastern Arctic coast. Clearing out back to the west here with high pressure and drying out. Looks like a mostly sunny day for the panhandle with some low clouds, fog, possible drizzle along the coast. And this front coming northward now, the one that was a little farther south tomorrow, they'll spread the rain in to the eastern central Aleutians tomorrow, will advance northward. Wet, windy conditions for the Pribilofs into Bristol Bay, the Alaska Peninsula. Rain chances increasing there here on the southwest side of Kodiak Island, with the front wrapping back in toward the low center here that's just south-south-west of AKwx. So periods of rain, AKwx, southeast winds, a little bit stronger in the northerlies there from about Amchitka on out to Shimia, northeast maybe 20 to 30 miles per hour. Otherwise, pretty light winds, light northerly drift there for the northern Bering Sea. Seward Peninsula looking mostly sunny and still nice here over south central Alaska. Mostly sunny, Cook Inlet, Susitna Valley, Prince William Sound into the Copper River Basin. Temperatures, lows tonight, lower 30s to upper 20s, lower 30s for the Arctic coast and North Slope, Western Brooks Range. Mid-30s down into the northern Kuskokwim Valley. 40s, south central Alaska to Kodiak Island. Upper 30s, lower 40s, the Aleutians. Mostly in the lower 40s for the Aleutians. Upper 30s in areas for the Alaska Peninsula. Highs for tomorrow, 55 to maybe the lower 60s. Possible, mostly in the upper 50s, and that's about it for the southern panhandle. Same thing in the north. 55 to 60 here with more sunshine. North Gulf Coast, Kodiak Island, Cook Inlet, right up into the Susitna and Matanuska Valleys. 50s, Tanana Valley. 30s, North Slope, on out to the Arctic coast, and mostly in the mid-30s out there to near 40 to 45 for Kotzebue Sound. And then the lows for tomorrow night, a little chillier here. Got some mid to upper 20s showing up for the Brooks Range and the North Slope, right around near or a little below freezing for the areas there for the Arctic coast. And lower 40s, upper 30s to lower 40s, south central Alaska. And then the highs for Wednesday shaping up like this, mid to upper 30s, Brooks Range on out to the Arctic coast. Lower to mid 50s here for the Yukon Valley area, upper Yukon into the Tanana Valley, and mid to upper 50s here, south central Alaska. and now 50s to lower 60s with more sunshine over the southeast coast in the forecast, and not much change going on out here over the Alaska Peninsula westward out to the Aleutians.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Moving on to flying weather here. Tomorrow morning, IFR, Brooks Range on out to the eastern Arctic coast, and some areas of IFR here from the White Mountains to the central western Alaska Range, marginal VFR up across the Talkeetnas, and then another IFR band pushing eastward, St. Lawrence Island into the Seward Peninsula and Yukon Delta coast. Pretty good over the southern Bering to the Aleutians, and some marginal VFR just off the coast there, some with lesser marginal conditions inland. That breaks out pretty good tomorrow afternoon for VFR. Right up across Copper River Basin, south central Alaska, Kodiak Island, lots of marginal VFR spreading eastward to the Alaska Range and northward, with IFR southern slopes of the Brooks Range on out to the eastern Arctic coast, with some IFR there over the central Bering Sea and other area there from about Cape Newenham over to roughly Dillingham. Starting to see a little bit of an increase here over the Aleutians by Wednesday morning. That'll continue to increase with IFR spreading up to the Alaska Peninsula, say to False Pass or King Cove. Definitely the Fox Islands on out toward Adak and Atka, with marginal VFR into the east central interior, now down to the Alaska Range with some IFR all the way back to the Aleutian Range. IFR holding up there over the Brooks Range to the eastern north slope. That shifts up to the northeast a little bit for Wednesday afternoon. Marginal VFR back to the west, improving here along the west coast in the interior, south central Alaska. VFR, risk of a thunderstorm, eastern Alaska Range. IFR continuing to increase here into the southeast Bering Sea, but staying south of the Pribilofs. It looks like about Atka on over to roughly Cold Bay, and then up to toward Chignik will be the area of IFR. Marginal VFR just touching southwest Kodiak Island. Passes Anatuvik, IFR to marginal, same trend for Adigan. And for Lake Clark and Merrill, marginal VFR becoming VFR. And for Rainy, VFR. Windy, marginal becoming VFR. Isabel, VFR, good for Mentasta. Tanita, open. And Portage, marginal early in the day, becoming VFR by late morning. Chilkoot and White, IFR becoming VFR. Freezing levels. Colder air now slipping down into the western interior, 2,000 feet northern Kuskokwim Valley. Pretty good gradient here across Bristol Bay to 10,000 feet over the eastern Aleutians, 4,000 feet for the Panhandle. Icing forecast, got all that moisture coming eastward here, so areas of isolated moderate rime icing coming into the western interior, trailing back to Nunivak Island. Another batch up here from the Brooks Range to the eastern Arctic coast, and some leftover possibly areas of light mixed icing over the southern Panhandle. Jet stream for tomorrow. We've got basically high pressure here over the southeast interior on up into northern Canada, and pretty good flow coming out of the Russian Far East at about 90 knots, but it splits right along the coast here, with one branch sailing off to the southeast at about 100 knots, the other one curving to the north. So initially that moisture won't be getting that far east, at least not past the Alaska Range, but the whole pattern is shifting eastward, so eventually it will here later in the week over the next couple of days or by Wednesday, Thursday. Otherwise, south to north flow here pulling moisture northward, but then takes a turn to the east, so it doesn't quite make the eastern Aleutians through tomorrow, but tomorrow evening and thereafter, it'll make a pretty good jog to the north. And for the 9,000 foot wind flow chart, pretty good winds as this low pulls eastward here, 30 to 40 knots coming right into the western interior. 15 to 20 knots up to the border there in the eastern Arctic coast, much lighter over the southeast interior, with just 5 to 10 knots Copper River Basin. 20 knot northwesterlies here, Barren Islands, Kodiak Island area, light Alaska Peninsula, and strong winds mostly to the south of the Aleutians, just coming up 20 to 30 knots right along the central to the eastern Aleutian areas, light for the Panhandle. And at 3,000 feet northwest, 10 to 20, out along the coast of the Panhandle, otherwise 5 knots, really light inland. Light winds over the southeast interior, southwest 10 to 20 up in the northeast. Increases here back toward the low center as it comes eastward, 30 to 35 knots, 10 to 15 Bristol Bay, 25 knot winds, Kachemak Bay across Kodiak and the Barrens. Easterlies 25 to 30 along the Aleutians, lighter to the north, stronger to the south. And turbulence-wise, look for some considerable moderate chop to develop here below 5,000 feet from about Nikolsky on over to Adak, and then another area up here from the Cape Lisburne area down to about Kivalina, then through the Bering Strait to St. Lawrence Island, and then with those southwest winds coming into the western interior here. Otherwise, staying pretty nice elsewhere.
Her name is Patty Wagstaff, one of the most celebrated aerobatic pilots of all time. Three-time U.S. National Aerobatic Champion, she is the first woman to win this title. Because of her achievements, Patty has been honored by the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum as a pioneer of flight, and her Goodrich Extra 260 aircraft occupies the same gallery at the Smithsonian as Amelia Earhart's Lockheed Vega.
I have to admit, what I do seems like a pretty dangerous way to make a living. I suppose that's part of the appeal, why so many people come out to see me fly, and to see me take these risks. But, as fellow pilots, I'll let you in on a little secret. There's risk, all right. As you know, anytime you climb into an aircraft, there's risk. But over the years, I've learned to minimize that risk by careful preparation, training, planning, common sense, and constant situational awareness. Attention to safety keeps me alive in the air. But safety doesn't begin at the top of an inverted loop. Safety begins on the ground before you get in your airplane.
As pilots, most of us have seen a great deal of change in airport operations over the past few years. Today, there are nearly 70 million tower operations annually, and the number is growing each year. Pilots are challenged with more and more complex air traffic procedures, more complicated airport layout design. More and more, it is an environment of very real risk. But just as Patty Wagstaff has developed strategies for mitigating risk in the air, pilots can do the same on the ground by following standard procedures, such as using airport diagrams and planning their taxi routes.
The great majority of runway incursions are caused by pilot error. And the great majority of those errors, more than 70%, are caused by general aviation pilots. Those of us who have been flying for a while remember that they didn't teach us much about runway safety back in the days when we were in training. In recent years, that's changed. The FAA has developed a number of educational programs and strategies to help pilots improve runway safety. In fact, with more than 650,000 pilots and more than 240,000 aircraft all conducting millions of operations around the clock, it's amazing how safe our airports are. But still, with the best of training, collisions can happen at any airport, at any time, to any pilot. We may be good pilots, but we are also human. And sometimes we make very human mistakes.
And ground Cessna 9308. Say again.
Runway incursions are most often the result of a loss of situational awareness. For a variety of reasons, the pilot becomes confused by the airport's signs and layout, or doesn't listen to or understand the controller's instructions, or simply fails to follow instructions.
Cessna 3 Sierra Papa.
Hold short, runway 26 left.
453 Sierra Papa, hold short, runway 26 left.
Cessna 3 Sierra Papa, you're over the whole line.
Often this is because he or she is unfamiliar with the airport, the pilot's fatigued, or is distracted by something in the cockpit.
You know what I was doing last night?
For a few critical seconds, pilots lose track of where they are in relation to their surroundings.
You can imagine how important it is for me to focus on situational awareness. In the air, my life depends on it. If I don't know precisely where I am and where I'm going, and the tasks required to get me there, the consequences could be catastrophic. And the same goes for you and for me on the ground.
One of the first keys to situational awareness is attention to detail even before you start your engine. Just as we always study area charts and weather information before we fly, it's important to be thoroughly familiar with the airport's layout before we taxi. Every airport is different, so it's important to obtain and study airport diagrams. Pay particular attention to complex or confusing runway and taxiway intersections and runway thresholds. Some airports publish hotspots on their airport diagrams. For example, intersections, where pilots should be especially vigilant. Obviously, we should make a similar study of the airport at our destination. Once you are thoroughly familiar with the airport layout, make sure you review the signs you will encounter as you taxi toward the active runway. Some simple phrases can help you remember what the signs mean. Black square, you're there. These black signs tell you which runway or taxiway you're on right now. Yellow array points the way. These yellow signs with black arrows point you toward a runway or a taxiway or toward a destination, such as a ramp. If you see white numerals on a red sign, remember, red and white, runways in sight. This type of sign shows the hold position for the runway. Remember, yellow markings represent taxiways and white markings represent runways.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Looking at today's sea ice analysis. Again, not much change over the last couple of days. Still this area extending down towards Mackenzie Bay, and then still seeing some new ice forming up along the ice edge, the main ice edge up there. That'll probably continue for the next few days. On to coastal forecasts. For the southeast coast here, northerly winds, central coast at about 15, otherwise northwest at 10 on both ends, and northwest 10 all through the inside waters. Slight seas at about 2 feet, 6 to 8 feet off the coast. And then for Wednesday, westerlies at 15 in the north turn northwest at 20 on down the coastline, picking up to 25 knots, so bring some small craft advisories into that zone on Wednesday. Inside waters, a little more of a breeze, 15 knots, kind of varying directions here depending on exactly where you are, with seas running 3 feet. Prince William Sound, northwest 15. That goes right on out into the eastern North Gulf Coast. In fact, all of the North Gulf Coast, northwest at 15 knots with 3 to 4 foot seas, and then increase considerably here for the Barren Islands, northwest at 30, and then gales out for tomorrow for Kachemak Bay with seas building to 10 feet. Lighter Cook Inlet, south of the Forelands, west at 15, and even lighter north of the Forelands. For Wednesday, southwest 10 in the north to 15 in the south of Cook Inlet. West.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.